right. Studies show we want to live independently as long as possible as we age, and taking on or moving in with a roommate is one way we can do that. However, many don't know where to start, what to look for in a roommate, and how to get their homes ready for one. Silvernest pairs empty nesters, retirees, and other older adults with compatible roommates, enabling them to earn supplementary income, remain in the homes and communities they love longer, and keep isolation at bay, all factors in healthy aging. So we have invited today Amy Ford, and Amy Ford is going to share a little bit about herself.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me today, and thanks for joining. I really look forward to this conversation because Silvernest, we already have a couple of partnerships with a couple other villages, which I'll talk about. So not only could this be something to consider for yourselves or someone else that you may know, but we do have a partner model on how to really embed home sharing into the culture of a village. So thank you again. I have been at Silvernest a little over 3 years, working on our partnerships effort specifically. And before that, I was with the National Council on Aging for a little over 7 years, working on home equity education, housing counseling, foreclosure prevention, things of that nature. And I learned of Silvernest during my time at NCOA. And I was always so fascinated with the concept because I would be working with our housing counselors across the state who were, helping people catch up on property taxes or enroll in benefits, and, listening to the counselors and being in close partnership with them. Sometimes the budget just still didn't work despite, a variety of solutions at the table. And I thought, home sharing is something that is pretty underutilized and potentially a solution that many aren't thinking of off the top of their head. And so when there was an opportunity to join the Silvernest team and help grow the movement of home sharing, I jumped at that opportunity and have really enjoyed my time working with this company. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what is home sharing. It's not new, right? I mean, generations of people have lived in community, and that's really, as humans, how we're designed to live. And I think a pillar of many villages is how do we leverage the opportunity to be with and for others and maintain that engagement and that level of support. However, most of us haven't had roommates since we were young or in college, and it's not something that we think of off the top of our head as a potential solution to maybe a little extra cash to meet our needs, to invest in travel, or try new things or go new places, or keep up on rising costs that are pretty consistently a struggle for many, especially medical costs and home maintenance and the like. I'm actually going to pause my sharing and pop up another screen because I want to go through a quick news story that was on Good Morning America the last month, because it features one of our pairings out in Colorado, Marlene and Becky. And I think what's really helpful is sometimes like seeing ourselves in these stories and, how could this be relevant, for me? So I'm gonna, if you cannot hear it, just let me know.
And now to a trend more and more Americans are cozying up to: home sharing becoming a real life Golden Girls moment. And Will Gans is here, and good morning. There was something else I was supposed to say.
The pal and confidant.
Yeah.
Thank you
There you
today.
go.
Yeah, I didn't wear the Golden Girl socks for nothing, Whit. Hello. All right, picture it. According to Silvernest, home sharers save an average of $750 a month compared to those renting a one-bedroom the old-fashioned way. So let's travel down the road and back again to find out why this move is about more than just a financial gain.
Not wonderful, my own Vertugenflügen.
The Golden Girls, setting the home sharing gold standard. Now, a recent survey finding Americans are cozying up to the idea. 51% of adults over 50 say they would be willing to share a house with a friend.
No, we're not partners, we are two people that decided it made just really good sense to share a home.
And I thought it was really important to be able to share something like that with somebody else.
Picture it. Sue Ronenkamp and Sue Larson have been home sharing outside of Denver, Colorado for more than 3 years.
There's somebody else who is, knows I'm coming and going, who checks in on me.
I just don't know what to do. Let me get the cheesecake and we'll talk.
I think it's a lot of the small things, but they really add up as being really important.
The Sues were strangers, finding each other on an app called Silvernest that helps connect homeowners with potential housemates.
We set up a time to have a face-to-face conversation. And she came with a list of questions.
Baking cookies at 11:30 p.m. definitely.
And I was glad to know.
There's a bit of a learning curve, but for baby boomers and their so-called boomates, it's all worth it.
And it really doesn't work unless you really come in with, yes, we are sharing a life in a home. Kind of all the good and bad that goes with that,
Little cheesecake wouldn't hurt either.
Cheers.
Cheers and thank you.
Thank you so much.
I had to send him a little cheesecake for our interview.
So, the phrases that Good Morning America used were a little silly for our taste, but I think what it communicates in the segment is how powerful it can be to build that community. Ironically, this story, Marlene and Becky, they were featured on PBS NewsHour a couple of months ago. And this was originally who Good Morning America wanted to interview. But I think what's fascinating is Becky on the left, she was in Europe for a month, and so she wasn't available. And I think that personifies kind of the point where she's saving such a good amount of money that she's able to have new adventures and try new things and live the life that she wants to live with a bit of financial flexibility. And so when we talk about home sharing at Silvernest, we specifically mean there's a host and a home seeker. Some people may call them homeowner or renter, but it's an existing space. There's a lot of other lingo out there like co-housing and co-living. We really specifically focus on home sharing, which means it's existing housing inventory in a community. It's an existing bedroom, and they list their space for rent, and they can earn passive income, potentially companionship, help with upkeep. That's really up to the pair to decide how they want that relationship to work. Also, we see some hosts doing, engaging in home sharing to actually make a difference in their community and offering space at a pretty low rent so that they can help support others in the community that need affordable housing. From the home seeker perspective, it's access to more affordable options. It's 60 to 70% less than a market rate apartment on your own. You can live closer to work or family. You just have a bit more flexibility. And when we talk about, what our hosts earn in terms of income, we don't even really quantify the shared expenses piece, because of course we're saying it's one air conditioning, one electric bill, one gas bill, one internet bill, which can really support budgets to stretch a bit further. Who is home sharing? So on our platform, we do traditionally see more older adults. Our platform is technically open to everybody over 18, and we've had as young as 18 and as old as over 100. So it really does run the gamut. But when you're looking at our average user, the hosts are about 65. Typically talking to us about a time of transition. Maybe they've decided to retire, or maybe they've had a divorce, or maybe they've decided to try a new career, or it really kind of runs the gamut. But and also many caregivers, which probably doesn't surprise many here. Many of the users, that mostly women we're speaking to, have sometimes finished a caregiving role. Maybe their parent has passed or their kids have grown or their grandchildren have moved away, whatever the case may be. So there's a bit of reflection on, I've got this home and I like my community. What do I want next for myself? And there's always a bit of financial pressure, which isn't surprising. And mostly women. I think what's really fascinating is we ask our hosts when they're signing up, are you open to reducing the rent for help around the house? And we're very explicit and clear that we mean chores. This is not personal care, not licensed care, nothing like that. It's snow removal, lawn care, dog walking, transportation, meal preparation. It really runs the gamut, but many are open to that, which is wonderful because home seekers can see that and they can use that as a way to negotiate or offer, services or supports that benefit both parties. Our home seekers are a bit more of a diverse population. They're a bit younger. There's a lot of intergenerational opportunity on our site. Like I mentioned, our averages are women in their 50s and 60s, but we do have many ages on our platform. The benefits, some of these feel obvious, and I bet I could actually add a couple more circles here to really drive the point home. I personally call home sharing just a unicorn because it's one solution that can really address so many, potential challenges. So most people come to home sharing for some financial resilience, looking to earn a little extra income. And that connection and chosen community piece and that companionship is a happy surprise. Sometimes people come with that primary intention, but most of the time it's the secondary, kind of realization that sure, there are things that you have to adjust when living with someone, but the net positive is better than they anticipated. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our platform and kind of some of the things that we've learned. I'm going to look at the chat. Okay, no questions. And feel free to interrupt me. We're a small group, so don't worry. So we're very clear that, and we understand very deeply that conflict is human and you can't home share with no risk, right? There's always potential challenges. And we've tried to really study these and understand these, and we've isolated them to 5 key potential challenges. And the reason why we aim to understand these deeply is so that we can build our tool to support these challenges. So I'll talk about that next. But how do I trust the person? Are they really who they say they are? Am I compatible? Are our personalities and lifestyles, like, is there an element of similarity there that will mean that we'll be comfortable together? Expectations. Have we all communicated our expectations? And really, what are my expectations? I think that's a lot of the work we aim to do in our sign-up process, is try to get under and encourage people to be very honest and open with what do they need this to look like to feel comfortable, to avoid problems later. From a boundaries perspective, can I maintain privacy? That's like a big question we get, and you certainly can, as long as you know, kind of upfront what you want and what you need to feel comfortable. And what about protections? Or how can we protect this arrangement once it's in place? And so really that's what we're focused on, is addressing those challenges through different tools on our site. So we're really trying to bring home sharing within everyone's reach, sort of democratizing access, so to speak. It's better than to go through a process like we offer. I would argue it's better than a Craigslist, than a bulletin board at a community center. It's a little more structured. And there's a lot of different tools we have to vet and screen folks. So from a security perspective, when you sign up, there's an identity verification process. So you have to verify that you are who you say you are. We offer background checks in the tool. So that's something that you can request another user get a background check. You can get a background check on yourself and share the results. And I can talk pretty deeply about background checks because it's something we're very, very intentional and thoughtful about, how we present the background checks and how we support our users in aiming to understand them, because there could be unintended consequences with this. So I could definitely talk about that more if it's of interest. We have private messaging, so you don't have to give away your phone number or your email address until you're ready. From a compatibility perspective, we have basically a matching algorithm. So we're asking you all sorts of questions. We're asking about pets and work hours, quiet hours, smoking, not smoking. And we're also asking things that sometimes people who haven't had a roommate for a while may not think to ask, such as, are you comfortable with firearms in the home? And all of this helps drive a bit of clarity for all of the users around the important things. We're trying to, I guess the best way I can explain it is force function the important conversations. And then from a guidance and a communication perspective, we're kind of there every step of the way. We have a lot of education that happens on the site throughout the process. So little explainers that pop up or places you can read a bit more, like what do we mean by ... We have a wonderful help center that we continue to add to that's very robust. We have customer service that offers chat, email, phone, and also text. I should add that there. And advice and best practices, templates for house rules, what's an interview checklist that you can use to make sure you're asking all the questions that may not be immediately top of mind. A referral to mediation. So this is something we rolled out in 2022. We have a partnership with a HUD housing counseling group that also does mediation and conflict resolution. So if our pairings run into an issue that we can't support, we do have that referral available, and they support the users through mediation or conflict resolution services. We've had to use that very infrequently. Again, as you can probably see by our other tools, as we're really trying to focus on preventative care, so to speak. How do we get ahead of potential issues and minimize surprises? And then we also have a home sharing agreement template. So think of a lease, but we have adapted it to a home sharing agreement specifically. We made the language a bit more user friendly, and we also have addendums in that agreement that have space for articulating, the house rules, what's shared and what's not. If we have a disagreement, how will we communicate? Some people prefer in writing, some people prefer a talk. It's just a way to kind of get ahead and plan for, if we get on each other's nerves, how are we going to handle it? And sometimes just having that on paper can really minimize challenges. This is just a quick slide of how it works. I mean, I think I've kind of gone through this already, but it's, I think the summary is four key steps: sign up and answer questions, browse roommates or listings, get to know the matches, and make it official with a home sharing agreement. On the right is just a bit of a look at what the dashboard looks like. So I'll make sure that this PowerPoint is available through the Brooklyn Village group, and you all can access it, because we include a lot of really great resources. Sometimes when people are considering home sharing or considering recommending it to friends or family, clients, what have you, it's nice to get a deep dive on kind of what's happening in the industry. So we've got some stories of actual home sharers, which again, I think it helps kind of just humanize like what this actually looks like. And then from a thought leadership perspective, just some very reliable resources on the growing trend, and more people are actually considering this. This is a real thing. And then from a partner perspective, as I mentioned, we have a number of about 20 partners that are, local government, nonprofit partners who are using our platform and home sharing to grow home sharing movements in their community and to solve kind of a variety of challenges that they may have in their mission, which again, I'm happy to talk more about if it's relevant. I think that the last thing I'll share is that we at Silvernest really view home sharing as a very joyful way to live. And that's what we find with our users and what they share with us. It's, people may come to the solution because of a need for finances or, for companionship, but it's not up from a place of it's not from a negative place. It's an opportunity of abundance, and it's a joyful way to live. So we always try to focus on that and hope that we weave that into our platform and our messaging and our stories, because living among and with others is can be just a wonderful way to live. And on 4th of July each year, we celebrate Independence Day, of course, but we also celebrate Interdependence Day, because we really as a team believe strongly in the value of depending on others for our happiness and our success and our stability in our communities. Okay, that's it. So I'll pause for any discussion or questions or anything you'd like me to expand on.
So anybody out there have any questions?
Yeah, I have one. Can you
Please,
hear me?
I can.
Yeah, thank you. That was very helpful. I always have lots of questions. Let me start with one about the background check.
Yes.
And I'm also wondering, a lease could be for a year, it could be for a number of years. Do you build in rent increases? How do you handle that fiscal element?
Sure. I'm going to handle the second part first, because the background check piece is a longer answer. So when one of the questions that we have on our website when you're signing up is we ask, what duration of home sharing agreement are you interested in? And you can select, 30 days, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months or more, or any of the above. And that's a matching component in our tool. So we're trying to help people who are interested in similar time periods find one another. And when people enter into a home sharing agreement, it's completely up to them how long they want that arrangement to go. We very frequently see people doing trial periods and saying, we'll do this for 30 days and then we can easily renew if we feel it's going well. We also see some people saying, pack a bag and come for the weekend, and we'll see how this goes. I think we try to provide people with ideas and things to think about, but it's really up to the users themselves to determine, the terms of that home sharing agreement, how long it is, what the rent is. From a rent perspective, we have a calculator that gives a suggested rental amount to the host based on location, amenities, and square footage, estimated square footage of the room. Is it a small, medium, large room? I mean, it's not super complicated, but the host can decide, oh, I don't need to charge that much, or, oh, I need to make more for this to work. And they can adjust that to whatever they want. And the home seekers, they can negotiate. So they can say, I love your place, I'm a perfect fit, but I can't make 700 work. Can you do 650? Or, is there anything I can do for you to make your life at home easier that we could exchange for lower rent? And then that should be all articulated in the home sharing agreement, in the addendum, and, kind of what's being agreed to. So we're like a information support tool provider. We don't dictate the rent amount or the terms of the agreement. And then I'll answer the background check. You didn't ask a specific question, but I'll just give you a deeper overview of what that looks like. And then you can let me know if there's more you want to know. So we use a tool called Checker, and you can look it up. It's a well-known tool that, Instacart and Uber, many entities use Checker. And basically we make it possible for people to get a background check on themselves or request a background check of another user. And when they get the results, we talk about them being as clear or consider. We do not use the words pass and fail. We feel it's important that, just because you have a blip on your background check does not mean you don't deserve, safe and affordable housing, but it's a tool to use for proper conversations. So what we advise our users is, if something's going to pop on your background check, but you're really interested in someone's home, just be transparent. Just say, I had this issue 3 years ago. it's going to pop. This is what happened. You know, and if the host isn't comfortable, they're not comfortable. It's their home. They can decide. But we don't share like full reports, nothing like that. It's clear or consider, and then the users can request each other's summaries. So you're not going to get drilled down very, specific, unless like the potential renter decides to share it with you voluntarily. But that's not something that we see very often. It's usually just a means for a gut check. And then, from there, we always recommend in our tools and resources, look them up on social media, ask for references of people that they've lived with before, meet them in person for a walk or a coffee. There's definitely further vetting that's very useful and helpful. But what we can do is provide that identity verification. We can provide that opportunity for background checks. We can support private messaging. And then from there, eventually you do have to meet the person and like kind of see if they're the right fit. Did I answer your questions?
Well, maybe it would be helpful to others as well as to me. What are the kind of blips that come up?
Mm-hmm.
The kind of things that I'm not talking about someone who was a felon.
Right. No.
I hope they do well, but let's put that away. But are things like evictions blips? Are things like bankruptcy? Well, why don't you give us some examples?
Sure. Maybe a DUI from 5 years ago. Something where, it's something that can be explained. It's something that can be discussed. And also we don't get a lot of background checks that come back that are a mess, but if you like me to dig deeper into that, I can look at some summary data and find out, maybe in the last year or so, what kinds of things do people see? But I think that's something that kind of comes to mind.
Well, not to belabor this, but what are the kind of things that are pulled in a background check? Rental history, credit history, education, work experience?
Yeah, let me just show you something real quickly that will probably help. And I'm just going to show you where it is, and hopefully you can take a look later, because we've got a great help center. And if you just go to help.silvernest.com, we have very deep answers for some of this. So I'm just going to go here, background checks. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go through all of this because there's a lot of information, but you can read exactly what's our process, what's included, sample results, how to interpret them, how to share, and like, what does it cover? So all of this is available that you can look at anytime if you want to get a better understanding, but this is what's included in our checker check, our checker background check.
And how much does it cost, a background check?
Sure. So you can use our site for free. And then if you want to do a background check, it's $29.99 and it's good for 90 days. If you want to become a Plus subscriber of Silvernest, I'll just show you that.
A what?
We have a pricing page that's pretty helpful. So you can use Silvernest for free and get the basic functionality. If you're a host, it would be $24.95 a month, and that includes a background check. And usually people, they take 2, 3, 4 months to decide, is this the right fit for them or not? And then they'll cancel, if they find someone or they don't. We have the free version because and this actually, I think someone mentioned in the chat about looking for housing for someone that they know and nothing quite worked out. We're nationally available, but we don't have robust inventory in every market. So we're not trying to do a trap and say, pay us money. Oh, there's no inventory in your area. So you can sign up for free and you can look around and decide if it's valuable to you to proceed as a Plus subscriber. And then as a home seeker, it's $14.95 a month, and that also includes a background check.
Thank you.
Sure.
Amy, these costs are relative up until you find a match, or do you continue to pay that through the lifetime of
You can cancel anytime. So if you feel, you're not finding what you're looking for, you can cancel anytime. If you find a match, you can stay subscribed and get additional resources and support from us, or you can cancel. It's really up to you.
I see. And so there was a question in the chat, and do we need to get a license to rent a room in DC? As a host?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm not a local expert on all the laws. When you are sharing your own home, it's a different, you have a different level of control. If you are renting an independent apartment, yes, that's a whole other thing. But if it's your own space and you're renting to somebody else and you're home sharing, you have quite a bit of control over that. And I've never heard of anybody needing a license.
Okay. The next question that just dropped in is also wondering if we need a lease in addition to the home sharing agreement.
So that is up to the user, up to the client to decide. The home sharing agreement that we provide our users is very robust and can serve as a lease. We have some people that, they'll add an addendum or things that are specifically important to them, or things that they really want to make sure are covered, so they can use our template and amend it as they need and then get their housemate to sign it. It's up to the user, because since we're available nationally, we can't have agreements that are specific for every single city, county. It's unfortunately not possible for us at this point in our company. So this home sharing agreement, we worked with attorneys to make sure that it had the same teeth, as a lease, but it was a bit easier to understand. So if you want maximum protection, or there's something specific you're looking for, you can add an addendum that fits your needs.
Okay, I have two follow-up questions. One is how does one, and I don't know if you covered this, but how does one pay the rent? Is it in cash? Is it through a third party?
It is, however, the two decide. So the interesting backstory here is actually we used to facilitate the collection of rent. We didn't collect it and hold it. We just provided the transfer, opportunity so that people could pay through our site. Nobody used it. They all told us repeatedly, we use PayPal, we use Venmo, we prefer a check. So we were spending a lot of money supporting this complicated payment tool that people just weren't using. So we decided to back out of that game. And instead, in our help center, we provide information on resources for how to splitting bills, things that you might need to consider, ways to pay, tools that are available. But the rise of things such as Cash App and Venmo and PayPal, and they seem to really just boom during COVID as well. We decided that wasn't a core role for our company anymore. So it's just up to the two housemates how they'd like to pay.
Okay. And what if a housemate is not paying? What's the recourse?
So that would be articulated in the home sharing agreement, and it's cause for eviction. And again, we do have, well, first of all, our customer service team is trained by this nonprofit partner we have that does mediation and conflict resolution. So if they call in or they write in, we can provide a modest amount of support. If it needs deeper support, we do have that relationship with the HUD Housing Counseling Group that we can provide, so they can help work through that conflict.
Okay, thanks. I have one more question.
Mhm.
These are all that came from me. So is there a home evaluation or a checklist or a guide? I don't know, like something to say this house is an appropriate house.
So that is not something that we provide. However, in our partner field. We, like I mentioned, we're partnered with many nonprofits and governments, local organizations that are supporting home sharing programs in their community. And they sometimes have their own requirements. So for example, the Rocky Mountain VA Medical Center that we work with a bunch of their social workers to run a program that they call Home Share for Care. Because of the work that they do, they require a home evaluation, but that's something that their social workers do. We support it and we help them operationalize it, but we don't actually do it. We have another partner in Washington, Faith Partners for Housing. A home visit is part of their protocol that they do as their client management services. So it depends if the local partner, if that's important to them, but as a general user to people just going to silvernest.com, a home visit or a home inspection is not part of our process.
Is this something you recommend?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think that visiting the property before signing anything is critical. Bringing along a pal or a family member is also a great idea to get another perspective. Asking for references of other people that have lived there is also, helpful and important. I think just we encourage staying as curious as possible before saying yes. I think what we try to stress is that home sharing is not an emergency housing solution. Not that it could never be, but it's generally speaking not emergency placement and emergency housing, because it's not something to be entered into quickly and lightly. People should take their time and consider and visit and meet and think through what they're entering into. And I think whenever there is a sense of like severe urgency, that's always a moment to take a beat and say, this is moving a bit too fast. And so I think from that perspective, if there's ever a seeker, a renter or a host who's trying to rush the other, that sometimes feels like a red flag.
Yeah, I get that. Thank you.
Sure.
So there's a question that came to me. What are the most densely populated areas for Silvernest host? For example, are there more homes to share on the East Coast?
So the markets where we have a lot of density is in the Denver metropolitan area. That's just where Silvernest was born, so it has a lot of history there. So if you go to our site and look in the Denver area, you'll see, quite a rich amount of inventory. We have a lot of inventory in the LA area and really all throughout California, just given the incredible cost it is to live there. We also have a couple of partner organizations out there, which can also drive some of the volume. We have a decent amount of inventory in Portland and the Oregon area. We have a very large partner there, Home Share Oregon, that we work closely with. So there's really a movement happening in Oregon. They have 900 hosts signed up. For their program, which is like remarkable. And then from there, the markets where we have other density is usually driven by a very challenged housing market. So Phoenix is particularly tough. There's pockets of Texas, Florida, Atlanta, and more sporadically up and down the East Coast, ironically. But that's also, so that the reason for that density is not as straightforward. I mean, some of it is dictated by organic interest in the housing market there. Some of it's dictated by where historically we've invested in digital marketing to let people know about Silvernest. And we haven't always had the resources to do that across the whole country, of course. And then, like I said, the partner organizations can drive some of that focus and inventory as well.
I'm curious, is there a time limit? If a person wanted to stay for 3 months, is that fine?
Yep. It would just be something that the two housemates would articulate in the home sharing agreement, so they're both clear.
Okay. Another question, wondering how many people are in the entire Silvernest system and what % of hosts are able to rent their homes on average?
Ooh, okay. Let's see what I can share here. So I can share that on a given month, we have about 14,000 people a month visiting our site. And we have strong conversion to signups around 3% of that. In terms of people that find their house on Silvernest, I'm going to stop sharing and see if I can reference a recent report and see what I can share. Because we're not a nonprofit, we are a .com. We're a public benefit corporation, but we are a company. There are some things that I can share and some things that I can't. Hold on, let me see. One moment. We ask people in 3 different places on our site if they found a housemate, and was it with Silvernest. We can't, again, because we're not a nonprofit with like a program with like a requirement. We can't twist people's arms and force them to tell us, if they found someone. We just try to ask them several different times in several different ways, like, were you successful? Let's see. It is over 11%. So it's growing. That number has, tripled in the last couple of years. So I think we're getting better at understanding what people want and what they need. And I just think also there's just the growing interest and need, for people to share homes has grown.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Again, this is so helpful. Very pragmatic. What happens around the issue of food? Often do people share costs for food, but then some people may share costs, but one person may gobble it all up. And yeah, okay, you're sharing a house. Well, you're probably moving into an already furnished home. So do people wind up storing stuff if they're giving up their own house or a large apartment? They'll have lots of stuff. So that could be another set of costs for storage for months or years.
It could for sure. And I don't have an easy answer to that because I think every home sharing agreement is different. But I will just give you a little peek at this home sharing agreement because first of all, this is like the lease section, the technical stuff and, whatever, security deposit, blah, 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 use of property, liability. But here at the end is what I had talked about, how we've amended or added additional components to really speak to some of what you're saying. What can the housemate have access to and what they can't, what's shared and what's not. And people can add to this. See, like you can, if you want to be clear about your food or if there's specific things that are important to you, we encourage people to articulate that. How will we use shared property, leisure time, guests, quiet hours, pets? How will we communicate? How, are there chores we want to kind of divide and conquer and basically have a sense of who generally does what? We used to have COVID questions. We have deprecated some of those because we feel people now have the language that, because there was just a time people didn't have the language that they needed to ask what, how do you deal with this right now? Because I want to feel like we agree on our approach. So now from a COVID perspective, we prompt people to remind them, like, if you have a requirement or something, please articulate it here. But we have, expired food. We don't have anything in here about shared food and how to pay for that. My gut, but again, this is not based on any research I have. My gut is that people share some food but generally don't share all of it. I think the example that we looked at on Good Morning America, the Sues, they've lived together for 3 years, so they probably have a much more integrated household than someone who, they're trying this out for 3 months. But I think you're raising a good point in terms of what else to put in that home share agreement. Like for the first 3 months, we won't share food because you're just getting to know each other and you don't know, how the other person is with food. So we think of some things, but we don't think of everything.
And another whole area of guests, especially if we're talking about possible romantic relationships and
Mhm.
all the challenges that could bring.
Yes, yes. And we do have something in here about guests. So we have people whether or not guests are permitted or not, and if they are, what are the following days or the occasions, any other parameters that you have about guests. So it's really, the host is in the driver's seat, in terms of what their expectations are. And it's just a matter of whether or not the seeker will be up for that or will comply.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, I have a question about some of the organizational partnerships. Have
Oh,
you ever
yeah.
had partnerships with like a university? In our neighborhood, we happen to have two, and the city has many, to be listed as a source where maybe graduate students could stay because it is going to be time limited.
Yes.
Is
Great
that
question.
done?
And I have had so many conversations with different universities, and I've never quite hit the nail on the head in terms of how, because some universities, they make money by having people live on their campus. And so it's really only relevant to places where they're completely strapped for housing. DC is probably one of them. And I've been successful at getting on resource lists, at some colleges, but I've had a lot of interesting conversations that I've never quite gone anywhere, which is a shame because I think that, to your point, graduate assistants or PhD candidates or people doing fellowships, they're the perfect candidate for sharing. We have partnerships with 5 states AmeriCorps programs where we house a home sharing resource center that the state groups that run the AmeriCorps programs send out to all their programs to encourage AmeriCorps alumni and others that are kind of service-minded in the community to open up their house for people who are serving in AmeriCorps. So they make very little money, and there's these horror stories of people living in their cars and in closets, and so we had 3 and now we have 5, and we're trying to expand that effort. That was based on a pilot the team had done with Teach for America, where we housed incoming teachers, again, that wanted to live near the school but couldn't afford it. It's pretty straightforward. But the colleges have been interesting. If you have contacts, I'm always happy to talk to anyone, or if you have ideas of who we could speak to, because I do think it's a natural place to find potential housemates. But I find them to be sometimes a little sticky or cagey about it, only because they want to make sure their dorms and their apartments and their rooms are filled before they tell people about other places to spend their money.
And then how do the partnerships with villages work?
Yes, so we have 2 right now. We have one in Colorado and one in Washington. And, our missions are so aligned in that, we're supporting people staying in their homes and staying in their community, very aligned with the village movement. And so we provide a landing page, which is like just a special website for each of these villages where we articulate, how we're partnered and how it works. And then we supply resources and marketing materials to the villages for how to advertise home sharing, how to talk about it, how to, flyers and newsletter blurbs and social media posts, things that they don't have to write themselves. They can just copy paste to get the word out and share. And then we also provide reports on a weekly basis that shows the village, volunteer or staff member, how many people are coming to the landing page, how many people have signed up, which can facilitate further support. So some villages, have obviously more staff than others, or, but the couple that we've worked with have been able to dedicate a little bit of time to following up with people, to doing education sessions. I come to speak sometimes and, give a little context. So it's really just a way to provide a dedicated place for people in a specific village to go and sign up. Although you get to take advantage of all the inventory there. You're not sequestered, to only your village inventory. I'm trying to think of the other ways that we support. Sometimes the villages sponsor those plus subscriptions. Sometimes partners do, and sometimes they don't. It depends on the demographic of the community. But I can show you really quickly. We've worked really hard to get so much of our stuff accessible online.
Is there a cost to the village?
There is. Well, there's two ways to do it, which I'll show you briefly. We have a simple no-cost referral partnership where we set folks up with some simple materials, and this, if you just go to our website, partner with us. Show you here. So a referral partnership doesn't cost anything. We give you a unique link. We give you some, we call them activation materials, but it's a few things that you might need to get started to share the word about home sharing and share about Silvernest. And then we do quarterly reports of dashboards, and it's just pretty lightweight. And sometimes people start there. They say, can we actually get people interested in this? Is there any traction before they decide to wrap around a bit more of like a program, so to speak. And if they would like to, it's $2,500 for the year. And that includes, training on our site, access to our demo site so people can play around and figure out how it works in case they want to support their members. Onboarding, the landing page I mentioned, we host that. We provide the activation materials, like I mentioned before, but we also have a really robust partner resource library that, testimonials, blogs, presentations, anything that is licensed to the partner to use as they would like, so they don't have to build anything themselves. And then we do more frequent reporting of activity. We also do quarterly call check-ins and kind of coaching on marketing and outreach and things of that nature. And some examples of our partnerships. We've got South Bay Cities Council of Governments. I mentioned the VA Medical Center, HUD Housing Counseling Group, AmeriCorps, the VA Medical Center. Just kind of runs the gamut. I think that's what's so exciting for me and my work, is that whether you're trying to prevent homelessness, or you're trying to stabilize income, or you're trying to reduce social isolation, it doesn't matter what your kind of mission or goal is. Home sharing it fits the bill, which is, kind of remarkable.
Thank you. It's 4:59. There's a comment in the chat for you, probably to take home. St. Joseph University in Philadelphia doesn't have guaranteed on-campus housing for juniors and seniors. And I have one question in reference to this, and then I don't know if there's any more questions after that. The benefits, other than dedicated housing and maybe supporting the members in your community, what are the benefits of a village joining?
Yeah, I think if the goal, and I apologize if I mischaracterized this at all, but my general understanding of the village is to support, people aging in community and staying in their homes and being part of the community. If that becomes cost prohibitive, if property taxes are too high, if the home needs big repairs, if transportation becomes tricky, the village can offer a lot of those benefits and supports through volunteers and through your dues to differing degrees based on the village you're in. But having a housemate can really provide that further stabilization, further income, further support. They could also become a volunteer within the village. Maybe they can do more for others in the community. Sometimes there's even one of the villages has done a campaign to all of their volunteers to say, hey, would you like to live in our community with some of our members and have an affordable place to live and continue to volunteer? So I think that's having this dedicated partnership helps activate the village, so they don't have to do it themselves. They can just really say, okay, here's the kickoff tool, here's the materials, and with minimal effort, they can get it out to their members and they can watch how it's going through our reporting.
All right, thank you.
I'll just a quick follow-up on the St. Joseph. Thank you for sending that. We actually launched 2 months ago a partnership with the Philadelphia Corporation for Aging, which is like, I think one of the second largest area agency on aging in the country. They're also a very like they employ like 500 people. Like that's a massive AAA. And we're working with them on their program called Housemates of Philadelphia. And one of their goals is to have engagement from their clients within the AAA and universities and try to connect the dots. And we're working with the mayor's office, the Commission on Aging there to connect to Vistas and other AmeriCorps. So like college students are part of that mix. I don't have an in. So if you have an in there, I would love to speak with them. Well, thank you for everyone's great questions and engagement. This was a great hour together.
Yes, thank you. Most
Thank
definitely.
you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing. Have a good week.
All right, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much. This was fascinating. Thank you.
Sure thing.